Desperate cries echoed from the smoking volcanic crater as a bear cub clung to a narrow rock ledge, surrounded by toxic fumes and impassable walls. At Yellowstone National Park's outer boundary, rangers have been monitoring a dormant volcanic vent showing recent minor activity. What began as a routine geological survey turned into a desperate rescue operation when hikers reported hearing animal cries from the crater. Park Ranger Samantha Collins led the initial response team to the site, where they discovered a 6-month-old black bear cub trapped on a narrow ledge 80 feet below the crater rim. The cub likely fell while following its mother along the ridge, explained wildlife biologist Janet Freeman. Bears are excellent climbers, but the volcanic glass-like surfaces are too smooth, and the rising sulfur gases are disorienting the animal. Initial rescue attempts had failed miserably. The park's rescue helicopter couldn't maintain position due to unpredictable thermal updrafts and toxic gas concerns. 3 rangers had attempted to rappel down, but unstable rock formations and sulfur dioxide concentrations made it impossible to reach the cub's position. Each passing hour diminished the cub's chances as dehydration set in. "We're running out of options," Collins admitted to the growing crowd of concerned onlookers and press. That's when Mark Reynolds approached the command post. The 42-year-old former Air Force pararescue specialist had been camping nearby. His quiet confidence stood out as he studied the situation with calculated intensity. "I might be able to help," he offered, eyeing the smoking crater. "I've worked in environments like this before." The brief exchange revealed little about his background, but something in his demeanor made Ranger Collins listen carefully. Reynolds immediately requested binoculars and the geological survey data. His methodical assessment impressed the rangers as he analyzed wind patterns, thermal activity, and the structural integrity of the crater walls. "Your vertical approach is sound, but you're using the wrong equipment for this environment," he explained, pointing to their standard-issue rescue gear. "These nylon lines will weaken in the sulfur environment and heat, and your breathing apparatus isn't rated for these gas concentrations." When a wildlife veterinarian mentioned the cub's deteriorating condition, Reynolds shifted his attention to the animal. "Based on its movement patterns, I'd estimate severe dehydration. The disoriented behavior suggests early stages of sulfur dioxide poisoning. I'd say we have less than 6 hours before neurological damage becomes irreversible." The rescue team exchanged glances, surprised by precise analysis. As they discussed options, the situation worsened. A park meteorologist rushed in with weather updates, showing an approaching thunderstorm. "Lightning strikes could trigger increased geothermal activity," she warned. The geologist's seismograph readings showed concerning patterns. "We're measuring increased microseismic events. Nothing dangerous yet, but the crater's becoming more active." Through the monitoring cameras, they watched the cub's behavior grow more erratic. It paced a narrow ledge, occasionally swiping at the air and losing balance, nearly falling into the deeper section of the crater where temperatures will be fatal. "If we do reach it, the cub will be terrified," cautioned the wildlife expert. "At that age, even a small bear has enough strength to cause serious injury when panicked." Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. "I've dealt with frightened animals in high-stress environments before." His mind flashed back to Afghanistan, extracting a military working dog and its injured handler from a mountainside under fire. Different circumstances, but the same principles of careful approach and trust building would apply. "That cub deserved a fighting chance," Reynolds said quietly. "In the military, we never leave anyone behind, not even the 4-legged team members." The ranger team respected his sentiment, but remained skeptical about practical solutions. "With all due respect, sir, what can you do that our trained rescue team couldn't?" Collins asked. Reynolds began methodically inventorying their available equipment, occasionally setting certain items aside. He requested unusual combinations. The park helicopters reserved parachute, heat-resistant materials from the geological survey team, wildlife tranquilizer equipment, and climbing gear. "Do you have any honey?" he asked suddenly. "And a clean shirt that's been worn by someone for at least a day?" The unusual request drew confused looks. "Scent is important," he explained. "When dealing with frightened animals, familiar smells can make the difference between trust and panic." As rangers scrambled to gather his requested items, Reynolds stepped away to make a quick call to a former Air Force colleague who now worked with wildlife rehabilitation. The Rangers couldn't hear the conversation, but his focused expression showed he was formulating a plan. While testing the tensile strength of modified climbing ropes, Reynolds briefly recounted to Collins his specialized training. In pararescue, we train for high-altitude drops into volcanic regions in Hawaii and Indonesia. The thermodynamics are similar to what we're facing here. He demonstrated a specialized, not while explaining. We learned to compensate for unpredictable updrafts in toxic environments while carrying injured personnel. Reynolds described a training exercise where they had extracted researchers from an active research station on Mount Merapi when volcanic activity unexpectedly increased. The principles are the same. Control your descent, manage your breathing apparatus, and maintain situational awareness. He also mentioned his experience with the military's working dog program. Animals respond to confidence and calm energy, especially in crisis situations. That's something we drilled into every handler. As the rescue team watched with growing interest, Reynolds outlined his unconventional plan. I propose using a modified paragliding approach with thermal-resistant materials. The parachute canopy will actually use the crater's thermal updrafts to our advantage, allowing control maneuvering that a helicopter can't achieve. He sketched a quick diagram showing how he would adapt the park's reserve parachute with a heat-resistant geological sampling tarpaulins to create a thermal-resistant descent system. We'll need to counterweight it specifically for my weight plus the cub, approximately 40 pounds. I'll use this modified harness with an animal transport attachment I can secure once I reach the ledge. The wildlife biologist looked skeptical. The cub will be terrified. It could attack you or jump from the ledge when approached. Reynolds nodded. That's why I'm bringing these. He held up a honey and the worn shirt he'd requested. Bears have an extraordinary sense of smell. I'll use the honey as an immediate attraction and the human-scented shirt for gradual acclimation. It's similar to techniques we use when rescuing displaced military working dogs. He explained how military animal handlers use scent introduction before visual contact. Animals rely on smell more than sight. By introducing a non-threatening scent before the animal sees me, I can reduce the initial fear response. The park safety officer raised legitimate concerns about equipment modifications, but Reynolds systematically addressed each one, citing military protocols for field-expedient solutions. Your standard breathing apparatus just needs this additional filtration layer, he demonstrated, using activated carbon materials from the geologist's equipment. In Ballad, we improvised similar systems during sandstorms. For the cub's extraction, Reynolds modified a tactical carrying harness with padding and secure closures. This will immobilize without harming. Military working dogs are transported similarly when injured. Reynolds calculated wind directions, thermal patterns, and weight distributions with remarkable precision, occasionally muttering technical jargon from his military days. The team watched as military precision transformed their standard rescue equipment into specialized tools. Once I secure the cub, I'll signal for extraction. The thermal currents make a self-ascent impossible, so we'll need the winch system ready. As he conducted final equipment checks, the rescue team's initial skepticism had transformed into cautious respect. You've done this before? Ranger Collins asked as Reynolds adjusted his improvised heat-resistant gloves. Not with a bear cub in a volcanic crater, he admitted with a slight smile. But the principles are the same. Calculate the risks, prepare for contingencies, and execute with precision. The team watched as he methodically tested each component of his modified equipment. His calm confidence contrasted sharply with the urgency of the situation. I'm ready, Reynolds finally announced, securing the modified breathing apparatus. The rescue team exchanged concerned glances as he approached the crater's edge. Standing at the crater's edge, Reynolds made final adjustments to his modified descent system. The smoking vent below seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. With a nod to the support team, he launched into the void, the thermal-resistant canopy catching the updraft exactly as calculated. He's maintaining position, radioed a spotter, surprise evident in his voice. The paragliding approach is working. Reynolds navigated the thermal currents with precise body adjustments, compensating for unexpected gusts with techniques honed through hundreds of military drops. Sulfurous clouds occasionally obscured him from view, causing anxious moments for the observation team. Approaching the target ledge, Reynolds communicated through his radio. Visual confirmation of the cub. It appears alert but severely dehydrated. The cub backed against the wall as Reynolds carefully landed on the narrow ledge. Following his rehearsed plan, he secured his position before addressing the frightened animal. The bear cub growled weakly, swatting the air with tiny paws that belied their potential danger. Reynolds remained motionless, speaking in low, rhythmic tones, a technique used with traumatized military dogs. Slowly, he removed the container of honey and placed a small amount on the rock surface between them. Initial contact established, he reported quietly, beginning acclimation process. The cub's powerful sense of smell detected the honey immediately. Hunger and dehydration competed with fear as the animal cautiously sniffed the air. Reynolds maintained his position, allowing the cub to make the first move, another principle from military animal handling. After tense minutes, the cub inched forward, drawn by the honey. Reynolds remained perfectly still as the animal quickly lapped up the offering. While the cub was distracted, he gently placed a human-scented shirt nearby, allowing his own scent to integrate with the existing smells. Just as progress seemed assured, disaster nearly struck. A microseismic event sent vibrations to the crater wall, dislodging rocks above their position. The cub, startled, scrambled backward and lost its footing at the ledge's edge. With lightning reflexes, Reynolds lunged forward, catching the cub before it fell into the deeper crater. The animal's panicked response was immediate. It twisted and bit down on his forearm, despite the protective material. Status? The radio crackled with concerned voices. Secure, Reynolds responded through gritted teeth, maintaining his grip as the cub struggled. Proceeding to Phase 2. Drawing on his training, Reynolds applied gentle but firm pressure points that military veterinarians use to calm distressed animals. The cub's struggling gradually subsided as Reynolds maintained a steady, quiet tone. Animals respond to our energy more than our actions, he'd explained during planning. This principle proved true as the exhausted cub finally stopped fighting. With careful movements, Reynolds secured the cub in the modified transport harness, ensuring breathing room while preventing movement that could endanger them both. The animal, either from exhaustion or a newfound trust, remained surprisingly calm. Package secure, Reynolds reported, ready for extraction. As if testing their resolve, the crater released another plume of toxic gas. Reynolds quickly adjusted his breathing apparatus and protected the cub's face with a specialized hood improvised from oxygen-permeable material. Beginning ascent now, he communicated, attaching the extraction line. The thermal currents are intensifying. We need to move quickly. The support team activated the winch system, and Reynolds, cradling the secured cub against his chest, began the precarious journey upward through swirling toxic gases and unpredictable air currents. The extraction team pulled with renewed urgency as Reynolds and his precious cargo emerged from the crater's edge. A spontaneous cheer erupted from rescue workers and onlookers as they caught sight of the former paratrooper cradling the bear cub securely against his chest. News cameras captured the moment Reynolds stepped onto solid ground, his modified gear singed and smoking, but his mission accomplished. "I don't believe it," breathed Dr. Freeman, rushing forward with medical supplies. By all accounts, this shouldn't have worked. The cub, remarkably, remained calm in Reynolds' arms, showing none of the panic they had anticipated. Park veterinarians approached cautiously, but found the animal allowing their examination as long as it maintained physical contact with Reynolds. He severely dehydrated, but showing no signs of internal injuries, reported the lead veterinarian after preliminary assessment. It's remarkable, his vital signs are already stabilizing. News crews surrounded them, but Reynolds deflected questions with quiet humility. This was just application of training in a different context, he explained, gently transferring the cub to a specialized medical transport cage. Even then, the young bear seemed reluctant to break contact, reaching a paw through the bars toward Reynolds. "I've never seen a wild bear cub respond like this to a human," Dr. Freeman remarked, "especially after such trauma." Reynolds smiled slightly. "We understood each other. Sometimes that's all it takes." Over the following days, Reynolds visited the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, where the cub was recovering. The animal's recognition was immediate, perking up and approaching the edge of the enclosure whenever Reynolds appeared. He's making remarkable progress, the wildlife rehabilitator explained. With proper care, he should be able to return to the wild in a few months when he's stronger. When asked by a local reporter about his extraordinary rescue, Reynolds reflected thoughtfully. In the military, we're trained to see solutions where others see impossibilities. The skills veterans bring, calm under pressure, creative problem solving, and understanding animal behavior, can make the difference in these critical moments. He paused, looking toward the cub's enclosure. I think there's something we can all learn from this little guy's experience. When we're trapped in seemingly impossible situations, sometimes the help we need comes from unexpected places. We just have to trust and keep fighting. The story of the soldier and the bear cub resonated deeply with viewers across America. It raised important questions about the unique skills veterans bring to wildlife conservation efforts, their ability to stay calm in crisis, their ingenuity with limited resources, and their deep respect for all forms of life. What do you think makes veterans particularly effective in animal rescue situations? Have you witnessed other examples of military training being applied to wildlife conservation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story of courage and compassion touched you, please consider subscribing for more remarkable stories of service members making a difference beyond the battlefield.